it's your humble host, and I'm back with another video. This particular one came to my attention through one of my subscriptions again, this time the Independent Man. Though it was given a brief mention as a reference in his video, Men Sacrifice on the Altar of Matrimony, I went and watched it and found it to be quite insulting. I want to give a point of view and thoughts as a wife. Let's begin.
Marriage might have been fine for your parents or grandparents, but of what value is it today? Isn't it, as more and more young people seem to be saying, just a piece of paper?
Well, to them it's hard to see it as anything else considering A, just how much feminism, third wave to be exact, has come in attempting to destroy not only what it means to be a man, but what it means to be a woman. They have also attacked the nuclear family unit, mother, father, sister, brother. However, feminists are not the only ones that are out to do this, but the LGBT movement as a whole, with their redefinition of marriage on top of their transgender movement, which completely throws the definition of man and woman, husband and wife, out of whack. And let's not forget toxic masculinity. B, again, feminism has played a nasty role and has turned the courts against men in general, making it easier to throw any man accused of rape behind bars, really without any questions asked. Not to mention just how easily they're screwed over by the divorce courts or just by women in general. I've seen this firsthand. I could go on, but we would be here all day.
Well, it turns out that piece of paper might be the most valuable thing you will ever own.
The paper or marriage certificate is a legal document stating that a man and woman are married to each other. Yes, the document is important and helps you get a hold of other important documents, but the document itself is replaceable. I get that you're trying to be symbolic about it, but you're going about it the wrong way. It's the vows and the symbolism of what marriage represents that's what's important, not the damn paper.
Take the case of Doug Talby. At age 18, Talby worked a minimum wage job operating a press at a factory in Indiana and lived in his parents' basement. I didn't have a care in the world, Talby says. I didn't even have any bills.
Already, I could call bullshit on the story for a number of reasons. One, most parents get onto their kids about them still being in their house. They're constantly pushing their child to be out on their own if they are of the age to do so. Two, no bills to pay? What side of the world are you from? Young adults at the age of 19 have cell phones and cars, not to mention if they're still living with their parents, mom and dad are going to charge them rent. Well, if they're good parents anyway. 3, not a care in the world? Are you serious? Being that age while being just at the bottom steps of adulthood, yet not really old enough to do much of anything? Young people at that age have a lot to worry about, whether they're in college, trying to get into college, or just trying to hold down their jobs and trying to get used to having small bills. Young adults have many more things to worry about. There's also pressure from relationships and just overall emotional growth, trying to step out into a whole different world. Did you forget what it's like to be 19 already? You do look to be somewhat well up in age there, so I guess that's understandable.
But after marrying at 19 and having kids, Talby's perspective changed. I had to step up and think about others and start taking care of them. Talby quit his factory job and joined the Army, where he made significantly more money and received housing and health care paid for by the military. Whenever he saw a chance at promotion, he pursued it. It meant more money and benefits for himself and his family. Recently, in a bid to further boost his family's income, he left the Army to work as a finance manager at a car dealership. He's now pulling in 6 figures.
So, a husband who never excels or joins the Army, all of his work for his family is for naught? And are you seriously implying that people don't think of others until they're married? What reality do you live in? You're trying to paint a perfect picture for men to become the perfect family man or provider. It's not realistic. As a wife myself, I've seen my husband white knuckle it and keep going to a job that he hates and stresses him to no end just so he can provide for his house. I work too, but not as much as he. Are you seriously implying that just because my husband hasn't excelled in his awful jobs that he's not thinking of me? I can't tell if that's ignorance or arrogance talking. Just because you are given the opportunity to do so does not mean that you get to shame others who don't. People come from different backgrounds and aren't always provided the same opportunities due to their environment. But regardless, my husband, and I'm sure other husbands, work with what they got to keep a roof over their family's head. It's hard to make something difficult work. You should try it sometime.
Men who see no need to marry, or who are reluctant to marry until they make more money, could benefit from Talby's discovery.
I wonder why. Considering how this video was uploaded in May of this year, 2016, it's really out of touch with what's been going on in the world of men and women. You have been paying attention to what's been going on, right? Being married is looked down upon by feminists too. If anything, it's seen as slavery to men. Seriously, take a look out your window for a good long while. How can men get married if women are taught that marriage is just being under a man's thumb? Your story is unrealistic. Before you encourage men to get married, why don't you focus on encouraging society to get their heads screwed on straight first? Two does not come before one.
Marriage has a transformative effect on the behavior, emotional health, and financial well-being of adults, especially men. Men who get married work harder and more strategically, and earn more money than their single peers from similar backgrounds.
You're way off the mark. Being married does not define for a man how much he makes. Sure, it can determine how much his money is dispersed and how much goes where, but just because a man is married doesn't mean he's going to make more or work more. If anything, with marriage, when both spouses are working, a man has another form of income helping with the bills. My husband and I like to split the bills down the middle. Granted, that doesn't always happen, but we make it like that when we can. Also, you're putting all the work of marriage on the man financially. Sure, there will be times when the woman won't be able to work, but that does happen to the husband too. Husband and wife take care of each other. It's not just the man taking care of his wife. You're putting a real negative spin on marriage.
Marriage also transforms men's social world. They spend less time with friends and more time with family. They go to bars less and to church more. In the words of Nobel Prize-winning economist George Akerlof, men settle down when they get married. If they fail to get married, they fail to settle down.
I really dislike you right now. The way you're painting marriage for men is terrible. You're saying that they'll lose their friends or have to lose their friends just to be married. I'm sorry, but a man is going to need same-sex friends to spend time with and hang out. Being around his family and wife all the time is draining. Any marriage counselor will tell you that both the husband and wife need time apart and need time with friends. You're saying that they can't have a social life because they have a family? Men need to recruit. Women need to recruit. Also, they'll go to church more? Yeah, maybe against their own will. Some husbands do go to get closer to God, but it has to be their choice. The more I listen to your idea of marriage, the more it sounds like imprisonment or an unwanted job. I'm just saying.
My own research bears out Akerlof's view. Married men work about 400 hours more per year than single men with equivalent backgrounds. A Harvard study also found that married men were much less likely than their single peers to quit their current job unless they had another one lined up.
How many times was this study conducted? In what areas was this study conducted? What were the qualifications for said study and the control variables? Are you factoring in taxes or just going with the overall gross income? How did you factor from one study that married men make more than single men, much more, work longer hours than single men? Single men have to work 2 jobs to make ends meet. Yes, they may live a bit more frugal, but come on now, there are single men that make way more than married men. Also, when was this study conducted, and were those without degrees factored in? As for quitting a job without another one lined up, that depends on the family's finances overall, whether or not the husband does that. It's not just one way.
All this translates into a substantial marriage premium. On average, married men earn almost 20% more than their single peers. That's even after controlling for differences in education, race, ethnicity, and other background factors.
So you're saying married men make more money regardless of whether or not they have furthered their education? The only way that is possible if they have taken up some sort of trade and continue to work in that trade for a good number of years. There's a lot of hourly wage jobs that without furthering your education, you're capped to a certain amount of jobs that you can apply for. Also, race. Suffice to say, race does take a part in playing and determining what opportunities are available. However, it is not to the extreme degree that everyone says it is. Regardless, it can change the playing field enough to leave an impact. This, of course, does depend on the environment and what area the job is in. As for ethnicity, here in America, it really has no impact on how much a man makes, and all ethnicity does is trace where you come from as well as who your ancestors are. Other background factors, are you referring to taxes, sudden expenses, medical payments? What other background factors are you referring to? Depending on what they are, say medical expenses, which can add up quickly to a gross amount. Just because a married man may be making more, that does not mean that he gets to enjoy the fruits of his labor. With a family, medical expenses are even higher. The more you make, the more you have to pay in medical bills. You can thank Obamacare for that mess. And with making more, are you factoring whether or not these men actually get to keep a good portion of what they make versus what they have to pay out each year? It would help to clarify that too.
Why is there such a substantial marriage premium? There are at least 4 important reasons. 1. After marrying, men assume a new identity. Marriage is one of the last rites of passage into manhood remaining in our society, argues sociologist Stephen Knock.
Assumes a new identity? Not really. If anything, they relax more and let more of their real selves come out, which isn't a bad thing. It's not that they become a whole new person as if they get a new brain overnight. Marriage is an adjustment for both the man and the woman. They now have to learn how to live and work with each other. They also want to learn how to do this because they love and care for each other. As for marriage being a rite of passage, maybe in some cultures, but if anything, it's a dedication to another person. Marriage isn't a rite of passage of womanhood to me. It's me wanting to dedicate my life to my husband and to take care of him and work with him as my partner in life. Neither one of us get a new brain after our vows are said, but there are some things that both of us have to change.
He found that marriage engenders an ethic of responsibility among men, as well as a newfound sense of meaning and status in the world.
So men can't have status or be responsible unless they're married? What a crock. Marriage isn't supposed to be treated as a status. You make it sound like it's the door to an elevated way of life. Marriage is strange, wonderful, and sometimes a complete mindfuck. Excuse my language, but I have no other way of putting that. Either way, it's not a status and people don't become automatically responsible just because they're married. Men can be and are responsible without being married and have a high status.
2. Married men are motivated to maximize their income. This means having a different attitude toward their job. They work more hours and make better work choices. Studies find that men increase their work hours after marrying and reduce their hours after divorcing.
What statistics are you looking at? Have you actually spoken with a lot of divorced men? That may be the case for some, but from personal experience, they have to work more hours now that they're by themselves again. Men maximize their income regardless whether or not they're married. Their focus for the wealth changes, yes, but they still want to advance regardless. That's just a prerogative of being a man.
Sociologist Elizabeth Gorman concludes that married men are more likely to value higher-paying jobs than their single peers.
I'm sorry, but wouldn't it make more sense for a man to verify that and not a woman? Sexist, you may cry, but hear me out. This is a study on married men versus single men, right? Was a study conducted of an actual married and single man with your views of higher-paying jobs and whether or not they are of value? Why not bring in both a single man and a married man to discuss reviews on higher paying jobs? It makes more sense to do that way. Fellas, what do you think about my idea? Does it make more sense to you to have a realistic representation rather than just a conclusion? Evidence is not specified for the conclusion. It's just assumed.
3. There is evidence that employers prefer and promote men who are married. Married men are often seen as more responsible and dedicated workers and are rewarded with more opportunities to advance.
What employers and what evidence, or are we just assuming again? Again, men can't be dedicated just because they're not married? Way to devalue your own gender there, dude. Men are nothing unless they're attached to women because that's going to encourage men to tie the knot.
4th and finally, married men benefit from the advice and encouragement of their wives, who have an obvious interest in their success. There is no better motivator than your spouse.
Oh, okay. Forgive me for laughing, but how naive are you? Not all wives are encouraging, some are rather controlling or naggy. I do try to encourage my husband as best as I can, but do admit that it can give way to pestering him. You act like us wives are the true main source of encouragement for men. You couldn't be more wrong. Besides, that type of pressure is unrealistic. Don't get me wrong, wives should very much be encouraging and understanding to their husbands, but we can't be the ultimate source. Our husbands need encouragement from their friends, who you said they couldn't have, and from their family members as well. Fellow peers from the work or their bosses can be a source of encouragement too. I'm aware that I may be making myself look bad, but I'm being honest, which is another important factor of marriage. There's no better motivator than God. He's the ultimate source for encouragement. You did bring church into this, so I can assume that you guys are Christian or at least believe in God.
The tragedy is that despite all the good news we keep learning about the benefits of marriage, The institution is in retreat.
Yes, that is the unfortunate truth. I have already explained earlier as to why feminism has given way to an assortment of problems and communication problems between men and women. Women are being spoiled while men are being demonized. You do the math. Not to mention all the other confusion being passed around.
In 1960, 72% of all adults ages 18 and older were married. Today, it's 49%. In 1960, the average age at which men married was 23. Today, it's 29. The consequences of this are negative across the income spectrum, but they are especially so for those in the lower and middle classes.
Men are trying to secure themselves more while being more cautious, settling down with a woman. I don't blame them. It's too easy to put a man behind bars nowadays. All one has to do is scream rape and his life is over, or at least ruined. Divorce is also high considering less and less marriages lasting. This is due to, once again, improper communication between both the genders. What is proper and natural versus what is improper and unnatural. Feminism teaches women that they don't have to deal with their problems or change their behavior, while men have several problems and need to change theirs. Times have changed and not for the best. I'm not a man, but a woman, so personally I can't touch upon everything. Sorry, fellas.
Marriage is a clear path to a better life. It always has been. And now we have plenty of data to confirm it. But if you still don't believe me, just ask Doug Talby and millions like him.
Okay, screw Doug Talby. His story is not the mass majority. I'm sure it's a nice dream, but quit using it as a shining example for men to follow. It devalues what men have already done for their wives. It devalues what my husband has done for me. Screw him and screw you. Marriage can make your life better, but not in the way that you portray. Marriage is a lifelong dedication to your best friend and the willingness to change, grow, and own with your lifelong partner. It's willingness to face the hard times and good times together. It's not defined by white picket fence nor big diamond ring. The success of marriage is not defined by how much is in the man's pocketbook. Both have to work together to make it work, not just the man. This video makes it one-sided and it's not true. Yes, my husband does work more than I do because he was able to find a job that he was willing to work. He pays more of the bills than I do. I wish I could match him and relieve more of the burden and balance the bills where we used to have it, but right now I am unable. Still though, I do my best, and we have each our own little splurges and make sure that each other's taken care of, whether that be medical, financial, or emotional. We feel each other due to our imperfections and struggles, but we're still there for each other the best we can regardless. Sometimes I have to lean on him more, and sometimes he has to lean on me more, both in different ways. Fellas, there's no need to rush into a relationship. Each of you have your own time when you are to meet your future wife. Some of you want to remain alone, and that is fine too. Screw what this idiot says and focus on you. When the time is right, and if you're meant to settle down, God will bring you to your wife or your wife to you. You're a man regardless, as long as you're taking care of your business and taking care of those that are close to you from where I stand. You are still of value whether or not you are single or married. Well, I think that's enough for now. Peace out.